WWDC 24 is coming to a close. If you only watched the keynote, you might get an impression that this time it was mostly about consumer stuff. The redesigned home screen, new features in Apple's first-party apps, and of course, the buzzword of the last couple of years, artificial intelligence. We developers did not get a new programming language, new UI framework, or many brand new SDKs. But I can tell you that this impression is far from true. There's actually lots to unpack this year. Settle in, as I'm about to highlight the key updates for developers announced at WWDC 24. I'm Yakov, and this is the SwiftBird, a channel where I talk about software development and software development. Subscribe to stay tuned for more tech stuff. With that said, let's begin. I started writing this video right after the keynote, and to be honest, at first I didn't really know what to talk about. As a Mac and iPhone user, I'm eager to try the new features. But as a developer, I initially found this year's announcements kinda modest. But that was only until I watched other sessions, first and foremost the platform State of the Union. As a more niche thing tailored to developers, it offers a better view at what's coming to their day-to-day work in the near future. And I'll tell you this, WWDC 24 is packed with new tools and quality of life improvements. Yes, we didn't get a new programming language, but Swift 6 might just as well be seen as one. We didn't get a new UI framework, but we are getting a whole new testing stack. AI Assistance has finally made its way to Xcode, better late than never, I guess. We're also seeing many additions to existing frameworks here and there. And probably my personal favorite, Swift is finally getting more traction outside Apple platforms. Let's take a closer look at each of those highlights. Back in March, Swift 5.10 came out. I did a separate video going over its new features and changes. And in that video, I also mentioned that we wouldn't be getting any Swift 5 updates in the future. That's because we've got Swift 6 around the corner. It's coming later this year, in September perhaps, and it brings a lot. Now, if you've been following the evolution of Swift, you probably noticed that its major versions aren't the same as major versions of iOS or Xcode. We do get new stuff here and there, but typically those changes already existed in the language, only they were hidden behind feature flags. Swift 6 is basically the same deal. It slightly alters the way you write your apps, but many of the concrete tools have been available for a while, you just had to enable them. The key change shipping in Swift 6 is how it handles concurrency and multi-threading. Previously, you could enable complete concurrency checking for a code. Doing so would enforce stricter rules for how you're allowed to call methods and mutate data. All that in the name of fewer race conditions and less data corruption. Swift 6 basically makes those strict checks mandatory, while at the same time improving the accuracy of its diagnostics, so you get fewer false positives. Compiling in the Swift 6 mode is opt-in. Unless you explicitly choose this version in build settings, your code will continue using Swift 5. But if you're not ready to make a jump right away, there's good news too. You can upgrade your code base to Swift 6 incrementally. The compiler settings let you enable the new checks one by one. In that case, any violations will produce warnings, not errors. I've had a chance to try a preview build of the Swift 6 toolchain in several real apps. The results were mixed, but nothing to worry about at this point, I think. A very small and simple iOS app compiled and launched just fine, in both the Swift 5 and Swift 6 modes. In a larger and not so simple app, with multiple internal Swift packages, the first beta of Xcode 16 had trouble resolving the dependencies, so I wasn't able to build it. And in yet another app I tested, this one's for macOS, the compiler threw an error whose phrasing was quite confusing. That was in the Swift 5 mode, by the way. But I guess these issues are temporary, and a future beta build will fix them, maybe even without any tweaks in the codebase. Swift 6 ships a large number of other changes, which I won't dive into just yet. I'll probably do a separate video going over the updates in detail. Subscribe to the SwiftBird if you want to stay tuned. For now, let's move on. Of course, I will address the big thing, the Apple Intelligence thing. But here I should start with the bad news. No doubt, fixing your writing or creating iMessage stickers look totally enticing. But chances are you're not getting any of that. Neither you nor your users. Apple's artificial intelligence features are coming this fall in beta. But as of today, only 2 iPhones are listed as supported, the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. That's just two iPhone models out of the 23 which support iOS 18. It's a bit better on the Mac and iPad, where every M-series chip supports Apple Intelligence. That means many devices dating back as far as 2020 will work with at least some of the AI features. But the iPhone is the biggest platform of them all, so limiting support to just a couple models seems like a strange choice, especially when you compare the performance of the M1 with something like the A15. And if you want to take advantage of Apple's AI as a developer for something like predictive code completion in Xcode, well, there's a couple limitations too. Once again, you've got to be using Apple Silicon. Then you need to be running macOS 15, which is currently in beta. And finally, your Mac needs at least 16GB of RAM. Sorry, but your 8GB MacBook ain't gonna cut it, even if it's last year's MacBook Pro, or even the MacBook Air released just a few months ago. So, with the majority of users being cut off from Apple's AI, I don't think investing lots of time and effort into developing such features is a good idea right now. Personally, I'll wait at least until iOS 18 is out. Maybe by that time, Apple will figure out a way to squeeze its artificial intelligence into more iPhones. That was the bad news. But the good news is that you're getting many of the AI features for free, with little to no development on your side. For example, generating and rewriting text will work out of the box if your app uses the standard text views. The same is true for Siri interacting with text in your app. As long as you rely on the standard labels and text views, they will be visible to Siri. User-generated emojis are slightly different, as they're not Unicode characters, but rather images. However, Apple says that switching from strings to attributed strings should be enough. And AI-powered image generation exposes an API which looks fairly simple to use. I'm sure playing with the AI features will be fun to the users who can access them. But as a developer, I don't have high hopes just yet. Let's move on from adding AI to apps to using AI in development. Apple says Xcode 16 is gonna be a big deal. I agree, but not for the reasons you might think of. I didn't install the beta of macOS, so I can't say much on predictive code completion. And Swift Assist, the chatbot that answers questions, explains the APIs, and helps with prototyping, it's not coming until later this year. But historically, Xcode hasn't been the smartest or best organized code editor, so any improvement here is going to benefit developers. Honestly, I'm still impressed that Xcode learned the correct singular form for indices. That's real magic. The reason I think of Xcode 16 as a big deal is the improvements in the most fundamental areas: compiling, debugging, and profiling your code. The build system in Xcode 16 introduces something called explicit modules. This thing makes your products more transparent to the compiler, which can now parallelize compilation in more scenarios, and even start building your code without waiting for package resolution. The unified backtrace mode makes working with breakpoints a bit easier, because now you don't have to jump between stack frames in the organizer. Instead, code snippets from different frames are presented right in the editor. The thread checker now includes additional diagnostics, such as disk write monitoring and launch time analysis. And when you want even more details, Instruments ships with the new Flame graph. Overall, Xcode 16 feels solid, improving several of the key stages in app development. Aside from the Swift toolchain issues I mentioned earlier, I haven't much problems with the new version. One more key stage in development is testing, and here we've got really big news. This year we're getting an all-new testing framework. It's called Swift Testing. It's written in Swift, and it can save you quite a few lines of code. Now, how do I know it's written in Swift? It's not because of the name, and not even because Apple claims so. It's because Swift testing is open sourced. You can go to GitHub, see its implementation, and make contributions if you find something that can be improved. The framework is available on Windows and Linux as well. But unlike XCTest, which also supports Linux, Swift testing uses a single implementation on all the platforms. As for the actual test code you write with Swift testing, it looks quite similar to what you might have right now with XCTest. You use the expect macro instead of XCassert expressions. And you use the test macro instead of prefixing your methods with test. At first glance, that's about it. But in reality, Swift testing adds a couple pretty neat features. The first one is parameterized testing. You can specify multiple inputs which will be passed to the same test method one after another. Effectively, you'll be turning your single test into multiple, Gone are the days of endless copying and pasting, and forgetting to update something in the copied code. Another addition I found really cool is error matching. In my code, I prefer to throw errors instead of returning nil, because that makes the code more flexible and simplifies debugging. But testing such code takes more than just an access or nil. You've got to make sure the error is thrown, and not just any error, but a specific one. Doing so in XCTest is possible, but it looks quite cumbersome. Swift testing makes solving such tasks much more straightforward. You just tell it which error you expect. If a different one is thrown, or if no error is thrown at all, the test will fail. You don't have to catch those scenarios manually, which means you don't risk forgetting to do so. Swift testing brings a number of changes to how your tests run. I encourage you to watch the link sessions, so none of them comes as a surprise. For example, Swift testing creates a new Swift instance for each test. You no longer have to reset the state in the teardown method. Also, by default, tests run in parallel, which is a change from XCTest, where you have to opt into that. Finally, Swift testing doesn't support UI automation, and doesn't provide APIs for performance testing. In those scenarios, XCTest is still the choice. Even though I'm really excited about Swift testing, I don't want to test the limits of your patience. So enough about that, let's move on to other announcements. This year we're seeing a number of new frameworks, and many existing ones are getting updated. I'll briefly mention just a couple of them, but you can learn about the rest at the links below. Personally, I'm excited about the translation features in iOS and macOS getting a public API. Previously, the translation services were limited to Apple's first-party apps. If you wanted to translate dynamic content in your own app, you had to either do so on the backend or integrate something like Google's Cloud Translation SDK. While the quality and availability of Apple Translation may not be as good as Google's, integrating it into your app should be faster and easier. Swift UI, Swift Data, and Swift Charts are seeing substantial updates this year. In the Swift UI case, this of course means that you're gonna need even more availability checks. And I'm not just talking about brand new features. I'm surprised that even after 5 years, Swift UI still hasn't achieved consistency in its API. Don't know about you, but it's hard for me to enjoy adding those if available things when methods change their name for no apparent reason. Feature parity with UIKit is another topic, and these days I'm still not sure I can rely on pretty basic things being present. For example, did you know that dismissing the keyboard on scroll was not available in SwiftUI until iOS 16? In UIKit, the very same feature arrived back in iOS 7. I didn't have time to check everything, but I doubt SwiftUI bridges all those gaps, even if it's 6th iteration. But at least I hope we're getting closer each year. App Intent, SiriKit, SF Symbols, Accessibility, and many other frameworks received some updates too, but I won't be going into details. Check out the session videos and documentation if you use any of them. Now, we're basically done with all the usual stuff. But there's one more topic I want to highlight. The final thing I'm excited about at this year's WWDC is Swift's expanded support for other platforms. Personally, I've been following the evolution of Swift on server for a couple years. And this time, we're getting a couple more Linux distributions with official Swift support. Last year, Swift 5.9 introduced new tools for explicit lifetime management. These additions made Swift a viable option for performance-critical scenarios, where automatic reference counting might not be enough. With this update from last year, and a few more announced this time, Swift is becoming a more appealing option to eventually replace C and C++. Or at least that's what Apple says. In their words, they're committed to bringing Swift to their own C++ code bases. Whether this initiative succeeds remains to be seen. In the end, we've seen at least a dozen attempts to create a C++ killer. But more tools means more flexibility, so it's a good news regardless. Another big thing this year is actually a small thing. Now Swift has a dedicated compiler mode which enables it to run on low-power devices, such as smart light bulbs. In this mode, some features become unavailable, and I can recommend you the sessions which explain the details. Again, broad adoption of Swift for such purposes is far from guaranteed, but it's still a compelling use case. So, these are key updates from WWDC 24, or at least these are what I consider key updates. There's many other changes, and I'll link a number of sessions in the description so you can have a look yourself. In my opinion, this year's WWDC is the biggest one in terms of announcements, since probably 2019 when SwiftUI and Combine arrived. Again, big announcements don't always mean a big success. SwiftUI is an example. I'd say it still struggles in some areas. I've already had a chance to try a couple new frameworks, Swift testing for instance, and I'm looking forward to trying a few more in the coming weeks. Earlier this year, I did a video about my wishlist for 2024. I titled it What I Want to See in Swift, but probably wouldn't. That's because in the last couple years, WWDC announcements did not feel really groundbreaking or whatever. After watching some sessions from WWDC 24, I would say Apple did more than I expected it to. And to me, that sounds pretty exciting, because working with the tools you enjoy is very satisfying. That's it for today's SwiftBird episode. I didn't rush to release it on Monday, because providing accurate coverage is more important to me than just being the first one to post a video. If you support this kind of approach, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also join my Patreon at the link in the description. It's got a free tier too. You'll see more tech stuff on the SwiftBird. Until then, make your code fly.